Welcome to the Awaken Heart Podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Walters. Get ready to create magic and miracles as you lean into your heart's desires. I believe not only does the heart want what it wants, but it knows. This show is a weekly deep dive into what it means to live from an awakened heart. I'll be sharing inspiring stories and real conversations with people just like you, who have turned the ordinary into the extraordinary. My mission is to show you how you too can be connected and heart-centered in every area of your life. Your journey to aligning with more love, more joy, and your wildest dreams come true starts now. Hello, and welcome back to the Awaken Heart Podcast. I hope all is well in your world out there, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to the Awakened Heart. And I know that we meander through a lot of different subjects of awakening your heart. I know this is the 38th episode, and we've gone through a relationship series, breath work. There's been human trafficking, highlighting the survivors of human trafficking and how not having parental controls on your computer is really detrimental to your children. A lot of children are being trafficked online. That's where they are initially trafficked. We have also had survivors of domestic abuse that survived 20 years of narcissistic abuse. We've also had some fun subjects like the love languages from the senses, from a man's perspective. So what we're doing here is highlighting a lot of different people's experiences. So some of it is fun. And if you take a little bit of insight out of it, that can make your life better, that's great. And also highlighting a lot of topics that a lot of people are afraid to touch, just like what's going on right now in the world since these lockdowns and nuttiness has begun. And it's getting more absurd as time goes on. So I'm not afraid to tackle these kind of subjects, and I will be continuing to do so as we go on because I feel that a lot of stuff is being swept under the carpet, and this crazy propaganda is rolling forward, this crazy plan. And if there's not people like myself and others that are willing to give voice to it and to use their platforms to create awareness for others to feel like they're not alone in this. So if you don't have the support system and looking at everything that's happening now, you can feel very alone, but there's a lot of us. There's more of us than you would think that are on this awakening path, awakening our hearts. And if we can support each other, we can make global change. Ongoing episodes, I plan to have some of those that were injured by the vaccine. And we know which vaccine I'm talking about, the CV that's trying to be pushed out of every man, woman, and child on this planet, which makes zero sense. Our bodies are all unique in their individuality, and it's not a one size fits all. And we're seeing horrible, horrible damage being done to so many people. So I plan to bring some of these people whose lives have been altered by the vaccine and a lot of these other things that are happening in the world because of this that's rolling out. So the COVID vaccine, as we know, this isn't going to be a podcast about it, but this is what's going to come down the road a lot more. So it's being used, this health quote unquote crisis, to create chaos in the world and as a cover for a total global domination by the elites, and it's been planned a very long time. So I'm going to highlight a lot more of these things. So because we are the ones that are standing in between that happening and it not happening, we are the ones that are going to save. Nobody's going to save us but ourselves. So that is what the Great Awakening is. So today's episode is going to be a little different. It's an awakening that I had almost 2 years ago, and many people who have had as well. And that is ayahuasca. 2 years ago, I had my life completely change around after I decided to partake in a ceremony that I had wanted to do for a very long time and was just looking for the right place to do it and the right timing, because it's not something that you go and seek to do. It's something that calls to you when you're ready. And I am actually going to be doing another ceremony next week. So I thought I would just highlight some of my experiences from the first 2 times that I did it, because it was a 2-night ceremony. And then I will come back on again and talk about what happened this next time. I'm really excited about it. I'm a little nervous about it because I just have no idea what's going to happen. All I can do is surrender to the process. And I learned that. I learned that the first time because, as you'll hear my story, my first night was not very fun because I was trying to control everything. But you know what? It gives you exactly what you need. So I guess I needed to that was part of it, the control. I needed to let go of control. So here is part 1. So I think I'm going to break this up into 3 different short segments. Maybe I'll just talk about the first night and what ayahuasca is, and then we'll go into the second one on another short episode, and then I'll come back on and talk about what happened with my next one. Oh my gosh. Ayahuasca. What is it and how is it used? Here is a brief 101 on this plant medicine that so many are using, because what it really does is giving you a spiritual experience. They use it for a spiritual experience because what it does is the plant actually access a part of the brain where your ego can be put aside and you're able to access higher states of consciousness. Because of that, they're more in touch with their authentic self or the divinity or other dimensions, and people's lives have been completely transformed afterwards. Many people say to avoid major life decisions prior to an ayahuasca retreat, as it could all be flipped on its head after the experience. Many people have abruptly ended relationships. They've changed careers. They might have moved to another city or another country and make radical shifts months following their retreats. Some people have lifelong healing of addiction, of trauma, of other deep wounding that has happened way back in their childhood and even before they were born into this lifetime. So it goes back through your DNA, through your lineage that you might not even have aware of that even exists, that is causing some trauma or wounding or ancestral damage. Can be completely cleared out, or at least you gain clarity on it and you can see it clearly now. It's not hidden beneath the surface anymore, which allows you to heal and transform it so it has not a hold on you anymore. Life gets fairly simple when we clear the noise. If you're unhappy in a relationship, then leave. If you're unfulfilled in your career, then quit. If you're around toxic people, then drop them. Our hearts tell us exactly what we want, yet those whispers go unnoticed when we have fears and self-doubt and mental baggage blasting in our minds. It's continually think about your mind. If someone saw you walking down the street and heard your thoughts, they'd put you in a straitjacket and put you away in an asylum because they think you're crazy. So without all that barrage, all that insensate, voice in the head, and you just clear all that out, you have clarity. And when you have the slightest taste of death, because it's called the vine of death, the noise tends to silence, leaving only what matters on the table. And once this occurs, tough decisions you've struggled with for years suddenly become clear as day, and you're able to tackle them or even transform them and let them go. Ayahuasca is an ancient tea, and it's 2 vines that are used in making it. It's like a thick concoction. It tastes horrible. I feel like it tastes like, I don't know. I feel like it tastes like, I always think of an engine oil or something. It's thick like that and goes down in a shot glass. Anyway, it's not very tasty or pleasant, but it's made by 2 vines that are mixed together. The word ayahuasca translates to vine of death or vine of souls. The powerful tea that they mix together, it induces intense hallucinations and creates introspection. It's used to create a psychedelic experience like other hallucinogens. In traditional cultures, it's often used by shamans or medicine men to open up communication with nature. And nature does play a huge part in this. And most ceremonies are done in South America at retreats where maybe there's hundreds of people. I wouldn't want to do it with that many people. And you'll see from my story that it's done in a really nice, tight container with only a few individuals there and 2 shamans. What happens is the spiritual leaders also use it to determine what's causing someone to be sick at a spiritual level, because they also do it as well, but they are so mastered with it that they can enter that space and hold the container for everyone to be safe. They know how to walk on the other side. In some religious ceremonies, including Brazil, ayahuasca is taken by everyone who participates in the ceremony, and they sing and chant as they drift into a trance. That is the facilitators, the curandos and the shamans. And it's so beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Like if this plant medicine wasn't even part of it, and it was this 6 hours of ceremony of this beautiful singing and this beautiful container of love, that would be all worth it itself. So I'm excited about going in and being immersed in that again. When a person drinks ayahuasca, they will have changes in their perception and sense of reality, and the experience can last for hours. So the ceremony I did started at 7 and ended at 1 o'clock in the morning. It's, like I said, not for the faint of heart. It's and it shouldn't be used recreationally at all, only in a ceremonial setting with people that are accredited and you can trust them. I've heard of instances where someone might be doing the medicine, for fun in an apartment house or some random club. I can't even imagine that. And people are getting sick and dying. So that's why it's so important to be doing it in the right setting with the right people. While people have been drinking ayahuasca tea for thousands of years, it's become popular in the Western culture more recently, and people believe it can treat things like addiction, OCD, and PTSD. There have been brain scans showing the use of this tea can decrease activity in certain areas of the brain. These areas, when they're overactive, are associated with conditions like anxiety, social phobia, as well as depression. So it stands to reason that this is why people feel like consuming ayahuasca might be beneficial for these disorders. The DMT, which is in the vine, it's a derivative from the vine, is also related to proteins that help with memory and the regeneration of neurons. Now, this is where the shaman comes into play. If the group is the symphony, the shaman is the conductor. They're able to manage the energy in yourself, in the people you're with, and in the room itself, all in real time. This is why picking the right shaman is so important. You're placing a certain degree of your well-being in their hands. And if you've chosen the right one, you'll witness some incredible things. They'll help navigate the whole group throughout the eye of the ayahuasca storm. Everyone has completely different experiences. Some people, it can lead to a purge, which is intense vomiting, which is supposed to be like clearing out your energy and clearing out what you need. Some people see the pits of hell and they're chased by giant spiders. It can be, you can spend the whole time throwing up, which thank God nobody in mine, the last two did. Oh my gosh. Or you could have such a euphoric experience where you're dancing around with angels and unicorns and fairies and having the time of your life. I had been wanting to do ayahuasca for a time now before I even began this journey. And I had heard of many places that I could have gone do it. I heard about it. There was someone in California that was facilitating it and out in Malibu. And then I know somebody that had gone to a retreat center down in Costa Rica, and she had an amazing experience. And none of it just was right. None of it really led me to actually doing it. I don't think I was ready to do it, and it just wasn't the right environment. I had been waiting for the right place and person to do it with. I mean, there was a time when I did go to Peru and I heard about in Iquitos where there were shamans that led these ceremonies, but I never got out that way, which is probably for the best, because when I learned about two healers in Portland who had been doing it for years and had spent time in Peru working with the medicine and with the local shamans there and indigenous people, I knew it was time to answer my call. Now, it's very important to do this with people who are trained and can hold a safe container for all those partaking in the ceremony. I also like that they do small groups, as a lot of energy is released, and there were 2 skilled facilitators to keep us safe. We rented a B&B on the coast and had our ceremony in the living room. You bring all your pads and your pillows and blankets and laid them out in a circle around our guides, who set the altar which we all contributed an item to for the weekend. And it stays there the whole weekend. People bring like stones or crystals or, a cross or something, or a picture or something that is very personal or has some kind of a significance for them. Luckily, I was a newbie. There was another newbie because a lot of people go and do this more than once. We are put right next to the shamans so they could keep a close eye on us. At 6:30, which is a half an hour before the ceremony, we were told not to drink any more water as we wanted the medicine to work in our system. So what happens before you even attend the ceremonies is you prepare your body to receive the medicine. So you really clean up your diet, make it a clean diet, maybe don't drink for a couple of weeks, processed foods, processed sugars. And as you get closer to the actual ceremony, you eliminate even more. And you're also told to abstain from any sexual encounters, sexual intercourse, and even masturbation because you want your body to, I guess it's just you're not releasing any extra energy, so you have within you what you need to transform during the ceremony. So at 6:30, the ceremony started at 7. We stopped drinking water and we gathered for a meeting where the facilitators explained to us where the medicine came from, how it was made and prepared. We were also shown the vine to pass around and set our intentions. We were given an idea of what to expect, how the ceremony would run, and what we might want to do. We might want to run away during it, curl up in a ball, and to just stay there and breathe it out. And trust me, I did have those moments where I wanted to flee. This was good because I experienced exactly those things at some time and had to remind myself that this was normal and to work through the discomfort. Then we were given the next half hour to be on our own before the ceremony began. There were 9 of us partaking in the ceremony, and I was the last one to receive it as it was passed around from right to left. It was dark in the room, only lit by candles. So one of the facilitators held the flashlight as the other shaman poured it into an exact amount and prayed over it. Then each one of us went up one by one, knelt or sat down, and received the medicine, and then sat back down. And then it was my turn. I was the last one. I had all these expectations. I was nervous, excited, and apprehensive all at the same time. I drank it down. It was thick, slightly sweet, sticky like tar, and not the best tasting at all. And right now, my lip is curling up at the thought of it. Then I went and sat back down, and they said, "Have a beautiful evening," and blew out the candle. We were in darkness. We were instructed to stay seated 30 to 45 minutes in silence until it started taking effect. In the darkness, I began to see shapes of everyone sitting there. When I started to feel it myself begin to take effect, I laid down. Facilitators during these ceremonies are curanderos, they're called, or shamans, and they begin singing and chanting and playing the chacapa, which is a shaker or rattle constructed of bundled leaves designed to work with the medicine inside of it. It's a tool that shamans use. I loved the sound of this rattle. It sounded like angel's wings and was so calming and soothing. Songs are an important part of the healing experience, and curandos use healing songs like Ikeros. These songs help our guides to communicate with the spirits and ask for help in healing treatments for patients. Each Ikero has a specific purpose in the healing process, and the curandos also use the Ikeros to raise and lower the intensity of the experience. Curanderos sing to open every ceremony, inviting spirits to be present in the ceremony in order to perform healings and sing throughout the ceremony as the patients navigate their own experience. And I'm telling you, the entire time, the entire 6 hours, it was nonstop. Beautiful songs, beautiful music that differed in intensity according to reading the energy in the room in different parts of the ceremony. When it began taking effect, I started to see geometric patterns, the stars, and vivid animated display behind my eyes. So if you think about like a kaleidoscope, well, first of all, what happens is you start seeing, like I said, geometric patterns, like Like it looks almost like there's numbers in the sky and there's math formulations. And then the kaleidoscope starts. So do you remember those kaleidoscopes that we used to have that looked like a telescope, and there'd be all these different colored patterns that you would see? That's what it's like. You just get taken away on wave and wave and wave of those colors. Each change in tempo of the song being sung sent the colors and cartoon show spiraling into another direction. So I couldn't grasp onto anything for any long period of time. Then the cold started. I began freezing cold as the medicine began to move through my body. It felt like antifreeze was moving slowly through every inch of my body. Wasn't very comfortable. I thought the room was freezing. It felt like I was in the Arctic, and it began slowly seeping up and sinking into my bones, and I had to put my head under my covers, and I'm not sure if it was the energy in the room that dropped or if it was actually the temperature of my body. So during this, I was being taken away by the display and was feeling it in my body when all of a sudden I heard retching across the room. This immediately brought me back into the room as I was terrified everyone was going to start throwing up, and I didn't know how I was going to handle it because I'm super sensitive to smell. I could already smell the lavender oil in the Florida water, which the shaman used, which smelled so good. And I, of course, didn't want to throw up myself, as this is something I avoid at all costs. I'm the kind of person that will curl up in a ball and pray to God and will it away. Please, God, don't let me throw up. Please, God, don't let me throw up. It's not something I wanted to do. From that point on, I was hypersensitive to everything going on in the room. Every noise, every movement. My mind was all over the place. I was uncomfortable. I was thinking, oh my God, this is the stupidest thing I have ever done. I am one of the only people that this doesn't work for. I can't go through this all night. How can I escape? There's no way I can do this the next night. I need to cancel tomorrow. I wonder how much an Uber would cost to pick me up out here. How much would it cost? I was 3 hours away. Come on, y'all. I was in the middle of nowhere. And on and on and on and on. At one point, I reached over to one of the shamans and told him I was really uncomfortable. I didn't think it was working, but he calmed me and said, just breathe. The medicine was working. Sometimes it has to clear out the vessel on the first night in order to go deeper. I did have some flashes of memories from my past, like a slow strobe light from one to the next. It was like flash, image, flash, image, flash, image. And it was about my childhood, times of feeling abandoned and mystical experiences. Interesting what memories were chosen, ones I had long forgotten about. My mind was so tortured and I was at my wits' end, and finally I said, I can't take these thoughts anymore. My mind is driving me crazy. I give up, I let go, I surrender. And then I found peace. My body relaxed and I moved into a peaceful state. The ceremony ended with a ventiata to close the healing circle, which provides us with protection from spiritual vulnerability before we left the ceremony. When it was my turn, I was still laying in bliss as the shaman came over, rubbed oil on my face and forehead, provided a blessing, administered a soplar by blowing Florida water over my body, and tobacco called mapacho onto my head. Mapacho, as a cleaning agent, is used as a conduit to transmit the healing energies of the plants and protection against negative energies. After the ceremony, lights were lit and our hosts began to make tea and prepare fruit for us to share. Except I was having none of it. I was not in that blissful place anymore. I was seriously annoyed by all the noise and lights and everything going on that I went downstairs to go to the bedroom, and I laid there tripping balls. I laid there in bed and I was just like, I couldn't sleep. I was uncomfortable. I was like, God knows what. So the medicine hit me, I think, a lot later, and I finally felt calm. By the time I really felt calm, the ceremony was over. So yeah, not the most pleasant experience that first night. But upon deeper reflection on this first night, though I was tortured for the most part, it's exactly what I needed. It gives you exactly what you need. My head was so full of expectations, doubts. My mind was going a million miles a minute. The eternal thoughts were causing me angst and anxiety with the nonstop chatter. And I was so being distracted and taken out of the moment and losing any semblance of calm. It's only when I finally had enough and surrendered, I entered a state of bliss. And that there, my friends, is the first night. And I think that's why it's so important to do more than one night, because my second night was completely different, which you will hear soon, because the second night is to be continued in the next episode. So I'm going to close out this podcast with this quote, which is really perfect for this kind of experience. It's by Carl Jung. It says, "The ego is only a bit of consciousness that floats on an ocean of dark things. The dark things are the inner things." And with that, thank you for listening. I look forward to seeing you on the next one of the Awaken Heart Podcast. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Awaken Heart Podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, head on over to your favorite podcast app to subscribe, rate, and review. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback, you can reach me at theawakenheartpodcast.com.